Hi guys, this is Marvin from shopsadapage.com, and today we are going to do an unboxing and review of the ID-Cooling FrostFlow X 240 AIO. I picked this up because it is currently one of the cheapest 240mm AIO out in the market for around 2,900 pesos or $55 US. I'm going to compare this with the stock cooler of my Ryzen 5 2600X as well as an aftermarket air cooler. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so I have here the packaging for the FrostFlow X 240 AIO from ID-Cooling. In front, we can see an image preview of the product which indicates that the fans are non-illuminated. At the back, we have the specifications right here, the CPU socket compatibility, and the measurements of the parts. Now, let's see what comes in the package. As I unbox this, let me go through with the main specifications. So it has a 240mm radiator with two 120mm PWM fans. The fans have a rated speed of 700 to 1800 RPM, max airflow of up to 74.5 CFM, with a max static pressure of 2.15mm H2O. The pump on the other hand has a rated speed of 2100 RPM with a max water flow of 106 liters per hour. I'll pop the complete specifications on the screen so you can check it out. Alright, so after opening the box, we're greeted with the user guide right here, then a foam padding for protection, and then we have the accessory box. Inside it, we have the mounting brackets for both Intel and AMD CPUs. We also have a plastic here with all the screws, washers, and mounting accessories. Then we have here the 120mm fan. Looking closer, as you can see, it is plain black and is non-illuminated, which is good if you're planning to build a stealth-themed PC. It has anti-vibration rubber on all corners, and the overall design is pretty basic but is clean nonetheless. On its back, you will see some technical information like the voltage and amperage ratings, which is important if you're going to daisy chain a lot of this on a single fan header. Inside the plastic, we have a rather small ID-Cooling thermal paste here. I assume this is only good for one or two applications basing from its size. And lastly, before we check out the actual AIO, we have a fan splitter here so that you can connect both fans on a single fan header. Okay, so as you can see, the AIO itself is nicely protected by a couple of plastics here. So we have the pump that initially has this plastic protection that you should remove prior to installation. I know it's basic, but you'll be surprised by how many people forget about that and complain about the temps. At first look and feel, the FrostFlow X's build quality is actually pretty decent for its price. The pump's logo is actually illuminated but only with white LED. The pump to tube connection is rotatable at some degrees and the tube itself is nicely braided. The radiator also has a decent build quality but is kinda thin at around 27mm. The installation process is quite easy. You just have to attach both fans in the orientation you want and install the radiator inside your case. In my particular case, which is the Rakawani Flow, the only option is in front, and I've decided to maximize my airflow by doing a push-pull configuration with 3 case fans as an intake and 2 radiator fans to pull the heat away. I know you're going to ask if the graphics card's temp will be affected by this setup, so I'm going to include some tests for that later. Now, once you're done installing the radiator, the next process is to install the appropriate brackets depending on your processor. You can refer to the manual with regards to that information and it's actually pretty easy to understand. Next, apply a good amount of thermal paste and then mount the pump in proper orientation gently. Connect the pump to the CPU header on your motherboard and the fans to your system fan headers and you're good to go. Now into the benchmarks, let's start off with Cinebench R15. The temperatures were captured using Hardware Monitor or Hardware Info 64, while the ambient temperature was captured using an external device. I also turned on Precision Boost Overdrive and Core Performance Boost on my Ryzen 5 2600X so that it can auto boost depending on the thermal headroom. So using the stock cooler, we got a minimum or idle temperature of 46.3 degrees with a whopping 82 degrees at max. The average temperature during the benchmark run is 57.8 degrees with an ambient temperature of 33.7 degrees. Now with the FrostFlow X AIO, with an ambient temperature of 34 degrees, the minimum temperature is only around 38.8 degrees with a maximum temperature of 68.9 degrees. The average temperature is 51.8. I've also included the Noctua NHU12S SEAM4 for an aftermarket air cooler for good measure. And with an ambient temperature of 33.3 degrees, the minimum temperature is 40 degrees. Maximum temperature of 71.4 degrees with an average of 51.1 degrees. I've also included the corresponding Cinebench score so that you can have an idea how the thermals affect the overall performance, as the auto boost depends on the thermal headroom. As you can see, the performance of the FrostFlow X AIO and the Noctua NHU12S air cooler is almost the same, with only a few degrees in between, especially with the average temp. Coincidentally, both these coolers are almost at the same price range, so if you're going to consider any of the two, you just have to choose between the pros and cons of an air cooler and an AIO, which is a subject for another discussion. As expected, both aftermarket coolers are way better than stock cooler, so it's definitely worth upgrading. Now, the main reason I decided to upgrade my CPU cooler is because of its benefits when it comes to video editing. As you can see below, rendering a 6-minute 1080p video on Premiere Pro gives a hard hit on my Ryzen 5 2600X using just the stock cooler, with a maximum temperature of 88.3 degrees and an average of 65.6 throughout the process. On the other hand, both the Noctua NHU12S and the FrostFlow X AIO gives the processor a little bit of breathing room, with a maximum temperature topping at around 71 to 73 degrees and an average of 60 to 61 degrees. For good measure, I also tested these coolers for gaming with the built-in benchmark of the Assassin's Creed Origins at 1080p Ultra settings. Using this stock cooler, we have a minimum temperature of 49.5 degrees, a maximum temperature of 77.4 degrees with an average of 63.2 degrees. The Noctua NHU12S gives us a minimum temperature of 42.3 degrees, a maximum temperature of 65.6 degrees with an average of 55.3 degrees. The FrostFlow X performs slightly better with a minimum temperature of 41.5 degrees, a maximum temperature of 62 degrees with an average of 51.5. And lastly, before we end our benchmarks, as I've mentioned earlier, I've also monitored the temperature of my graphics card, which is a Zotac 1070 Mini, to see if there is a significant thermal effect when mounting an AIO in front of a case. Because in theory, which most people believe, mounting an AIO in front will greatly increase the temperature of the graphics card, because it will pull hot air away from the radiator towards the inside. But is it really the case? Well, as per my testing, there's little to no difference in graphics card temps when an AIO is installed in front, at least for my configuration, which is with the FrostFlow X240 AIO in push-pull orientation inside the Rakhawani flow. For gaming, as you can see, the maximum temperature is pretty much the same across the board, with the stock cooler having slightly lower minimum and average temperatures. While in video rendering, the stock cooler is 5 degrees cooler on average, but just about the same with minimum and maximum temperature, and the overall difference is not as drastic as I thought it would be. So I think it's safe to say that overall, there's really no significant downside if you choose to install your AIO in front of your case. Unfortunately, my case doesn't allow mounting an AIO on top as a Nexus, so I wasn't able to include that on my testing. Alright, so to conclude, if you're looking for a budget 240mm AIO that performs quite decently, the ID-Cooling FrostFlow X is definitely a good option. The performance is obviously way better than the stock cooler, and allowing my Ryzen 5 2600X to boost all the way to 4.2 GHz anytime it wants is definitely worth the upgrade. The build quality and design is decent, although the lack of RGB may become a limitation in terms of matching themes, but on the other hand, it may be a good option for those who want their build to be a little bit more simple and discreet. Overall, it's very easy to recommend this one, especially at its competitive price of less than 3,000 pesos or $55 US. And there you have it guys, thank you for watching. Make sure to check the full article link below. Thanks to Sir Ira of ggwptech.com for lending me his Noctua NHU12S to somehow complete this review. You can get the FrostFlow X240 AIO from Softbox Solutions either from their Shopee or Lazada stores, and I'll leave the links below. Thank you for watching. If you appreciate my efforts on my videos, please leave a like and subscribe. Have a great day.